Broadcasting.
You've got your ears and your nose and your eyes and your mouth and your hands. For your senses, 5.
Oh, hi, Tom. What's in the box?
A surprise. See if you can guess.
Well, give me a few clues.
It's something you like, I know that much.
That's not a very good clue. Tell me about its properties.
Well, I'll give you 4 S's.
Not 3 guesses?
No, 4 S's.
4 S's. Where have I heard that line before? I'll give you 4 S's.
No, I think it's in the story of the terrible troll and the big blue box. Remember? Once there was a young girl who was walking home from school when she came across a large, solid box by the side of the path.
What a marvelous, useful-looking box. I think I'll take it home with me.
That's my box. I found it first. You leave it alone.
You didn't find it first. I did. It's my box, and I'm going to take it home.
Oh, there's only one way you'll get that box from me, and that's if you can name 4 of its properties.
Properties? What do you mean by properties?
Oh, you don't know what properties are, huh? Well, then you'll never get the box, will you?
Can I have 3 guesses?
No. But you can have 4 S's.
4 S's? Properties? You're not making sense. I don't know what you're talking about, but I do know I want this box. It's just the right size to put my doggie in.
Oh, bother! You got the first one right away.
What did I say?
Size. That's a property. It begins with an S. You said size.
Is that what I'm supposed to be guessing? Words used to describe something? Is that what you mean by properties?
No, I'm not going to answer any questions. You just have to guess. And you've got 3 S's left.
See if I care. I'm not interested in your silly guessing games anyway. And I don't care if you get angry. I don't care if you get so angry you turn the same shade of blue as the box.
Oh, bother! Now you've guessed the second S.
All I said was shade of blue. That's a property too, shade. See, I'm smarter than you thought. Now I know 2 of the S's, size and shade.
Well, the other 2 are harder, and you'll never guess those.
We'll see if I care. It's not such a great box anyway. It's just a dull square shape. Hey, that's another property, shape.
Bother, bother, bother! How did you guess that? Now you've guessed 3 of the 4 S's. Size, shape, and shade. Oh, but you'll never, ever, ever, ever guess the 4th one. I hope.
Don't be so sure. I guessed the first 3 very easily, and I bet I have the 4th one soon. Size, shape, shade. Those are 3 properties. Now, how else could I describe something? I could talk about its weight, but that doesn't start with an S. It doesn't make any noise. My, this is so smooth.
Smoothness! That's the 4th property! Oh, bother, 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 bother! You guessed all 4 S's. You spoiled my spell.
Where did he go? Oh, well, who cares? He couldn't fool me with his 4 S's or his properties of solids.
And so, the little girl got the box because she found out what the troll meant by properties, and she guessed 4 properties that begin with an S.
Size, shape, smoothness, and shade. I can use 4 S's to guess what's in your box.
Right. And while you're guessing, we could take a look at some of the different sizes, shapes, shades, and smoothnesses that are around us in the world.
Take a look at our world.
Let's see what we can see. Let's see what we can say. We can talk about size. Big things, small things, short things, tall things, little and huge things, tiny and large. So many sizes, sizes, sizes. We can talk about shape. We see it with our eyes. We feel it with our hands. We can talk about shape. Round things, square things, round things, square things, everywhere square things, and triangles too. Take a look at our world. Let's see what we can see. Let's see what we can say. We can talk about smoothness. Smooth things, rough things, soft things you can feel with your hands, and you're certain to find all kinds of smoothness, smoothness, smoothness. We can talk about shade. We see it with our eyes. So many colors to see. When we talk about shade, light things, bright things, pale things, white things, all kinds of colors around you to see. Size and shape and shade and smoothness. Size and shape and shade and smoothness. Size and shape and shade and smoothness. Size and...
You know, the story didn't end when the troll disappeared, because when the girl bent down to pick up the box, she found she couldn't lift it.
That's ridiculous. That box doesn't look that heavy, but I can't move it at all.
I told you you could have the box. I didn't say you'd be able to move it.
You said I could have it. It's my box, and I want to take it home.
Oh, well, you can take it home if you can lift it.
How am I supposed to do that?
Well, with this liquid. All that you got to do is put some of it around the box, and it'll come right up off the ground.
Well, then let me have it.
Not until you tell me about the properties of liquids.
Do you mean the 4 S's again?
No. With liquids, you only use 2 S's and another letter. And I'm not gonna tell you what the other letter is.
Well, the first 2 S's won't be hard. I bet the first one is shape. I can see that it's round shape because it's in a round-shaped bottle.
Well, a liquid doesn't have a shape of its own.
I know, but liquids take on the shape of whatever you put them in, so we could talk about shape.
Okay, so you got the first S, shape.
And I'll bet the other one is shade. That's an easy one. I can see that it's a light green shade.
Well, the 2 S's were the easy part, shape and shade. Anybody could guess that. But you'll never guess what other property I'm looking for.
That's not fair. You could at least tell me what letter it starts with. Ooh, if I could get a hold of that bottle, I'd pour that silly green liquid all over you.
Well, that's not fair. You shouldn't have been able to guess that quickly.
What did I say?
Pour. That's a property of liquids. They pour.
Of course, liquids can pour, so I was looking for the letter P.
You're no fun. You guess everything too quickly. I'm going home.
And I'm going home too, with the box.
While the girl is carrying home the box, why don't we take a look at some of the different liquids in the world and see if we can describe them using those properties, shape, shade, and how they pour.
Take a look at our world. Let's see what we can see. Let's see what we can say. When we talk about liquids, look at liquid shapes of liquids. They take the shape of the thing that they're in. And what is more, they all can pour. We can talk about shade. We see it with our eyes. So many colors to see. When we talk about shade, light ones, bright ones, pale ones, white ones, all kinds of liquids in all kinds of shades. See, feel, smell things, taste and hear things. See, feel, smell things, taste and hear things. See, feel, smell things, taste and hear things. See, feel, smell
There's a lot of different liquids in the world, aren't there? And there's a couple different liquids right here in this room. Here's one, ink. It's got a dark blue color, and it's taken on the shape of the container it's in. Here's another liquid, water. We use it to water our plants with. And you can see it's clear, it's taken on the shape of the container, and I can pour it. It pours pretty quickly, too. And here's my favorite, red soda pop.
We have a lot of solid furniture in this room, too. Let's look at the table. The table is solid and shaped like a rectangle. And the lamp is solid. The shade is very, very dark. And this rocking chair is solid. The wood is very, very smooth. But there's really only one solid that I'm interested in here. That's what is in this box.
Well, why don't you start with the 4 S's?
Well, give me a clue about its size.
It's about a little bit bigger than this book.
How about shape?
It's square-shaped.
How about smoothness?
It's smooth, all right. It's beautifully creamy smooth.
Creamy smooth? I think I'm beginning to guess. How about shade?
Oh, it's a deep shade of chocolatey brown.
Aha! I bet you can't give me a clue about how it pours, can you?
No, it's solid.
And I'll bet that it's something we can eat. I'll guess that it's a cake.
Cake. You're right.
Oh, that's beautiful, Tom.
Not bad.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm not going to need 4 S's or 3 guesses to know how this is going to taste.
But you do need your 5 senses, the 5 ways we have of knowing about the properties of matter.
The 5 senses are called the sense of hearing. The sense of hearing. The sense of smell. The sense of sight. The sense of touch. The sense of taste. So you can find out about your world by using your ears and your nose and your eyes and your mouth and your hands. All of your senses 5.
Take a look at our world. Let's see what we can see. Let's see what we can feel. Take a look at our world. We can hear things, taste and smell things. Properties give us a way to describe all kinds of things we see around us.
table's all ready. It's going to look great when we get the new tile top on it.
Hey, I'll go get the box of tiles and then we can get started.
Okay. Tom, the tiles are grouped in the box already, so we should be able to begin right away.
Here they are. Oh. I guess they're not in the right groups now.
Oh, boy, what a mess. Well, we'll just have to put them into the right groups.
Hey, classification. That's what we need here, classification.
That's just what I said. Put them into the right groups.
Oh, yeah. No, I guess to start with, we could group these terrible tiles by one of their properties.
Which property are you going to use since you're the one who spelled them?
Well, we could group them by different shapes. Or we could group them by different sizes, see? Or we could even group them by different colors, like that.
Well, I think shape will be our easiest property since we have 3 different shapes here. We've got triangles, and we've got circles, and we've got squares.
Okay, well, why don't we group them by shape right away, and then we get on with the fun part of laying out the pattern.
Okay, let's put the squares over here.
Okay, circles on this side here,
Okay.
and triangles in the middle.
Okay, I'll go through and pull out the squares.
Yeah, I'll look for circles. Circle, circle.
Squares. Some more triangles.
Circle.
Squares.
Okay, keep them separate here. Square.
Okay, some
For you.
triangles.
Triangle. Oh, great. That's finished. We have them all grouped by shape. Now we can get on with the pattern. Where do the instructions say to begin, Linda?
All the tiles should be printed. Oh, no. Tom, listen to
What?
what this says. Before you begin to work your design on the tabletop, all the tiles should be put into groups of the same color.
Color? Oh, we just got them all grouped by shape. That's one of the facts about matter, I guess. You can group it in so many different ways.
We just happen to choose the wrong way this time.
Well, let's start over again. How about this time we put all the light-colored ones on this side over here?
Okay, and then we'll put all the dark ones over here.
Yeah, and how about this color here in the middle?
Okay, that's a good idea. You see what's going to happen now, Tom? All of the shapes are going to be mixed up.
Oh, right. That's because we're grouping by a different property now. See, over here in this yellow pile, we're going to have square ones and triangles and circles. But they'll all be the same color. That's because shape just isn't important in this grouping. We have to pick out the shade. See?
You know, putting things into groups by one of their properties is a very important part of our world. Let's take a break from these terrible tiles and look at some of the ways we use grouping.
Many of the foodstuffs we buy are classified by weight. Eggs are sorted into different weights on a special machine. Each egg is placed on a miniature scale, and then it's carried to a different section depending on what it weighs. This view of the machine lets you see the eggs being weighed. When the eggs have been weighed, they move along to the next stage of the packaging process. They are put into cartons. The machine picks up 6 eggs at a time and puts them in the carton. Then the carton moves over a bit, and the next 6 eggs are put in place. When the carton is filled, it moves along the conveyor belt, ready to be packed in a box for shipping to the store. Eggs are a very important part of our diet, so an egg packing machine like this is kept busy all day classifying and packing the eggs. When we go to the store, we choose the eggs we want: small, medium, large, or extra large. And so the work of classification goes on. The eggs are weighed and then sorted into different boxes depending on what they weigh. Here's another example of classification. Boxes, which are used for packing goods for shipment to the store, are being classified for easier handling. The short, flat boxes go one way on the belt. The taller boxes go in another direction.
If the boxes are classified, it's easier for them to be handled and packed. Boxes of the same shape and size will stack together more easily than those of different sizes. Boxes are used for packing many things, so factories have to be able to move them quickly and easily. Boxes which are classified and carefully stacked can be moved on automatic trucks, so the job can be done more quickly. Classification is important in many ways in our life. Can you think of some other examples?
Well, that was a nice break, but I guess we better get back to work and get these tiles put onto the...
Okay, let me look at the instructions here. Linda?
Yeah?
You really want to have tiles on the table over there? I mean, we could cover it with a tablecloth or a thick coat of paint.
Tom, we both wanted tiles. That's the reason we bought tiles. What's the... Oh, did we do something wrong again?
Well,
What do the instructions say this time?
it says we have to do some more grouping. And then it says we have to do some ordering.
What do they mean by that?
Well, see, it says we have to start over here with this yellow pile, right? And we have to take out of the yellow pile all the square-shaped yellow ones, right? So that's more grouping, putting all the square-shaped yellow ones together.
And then?
Well, then it says we have to arrange all these square-shaped yellow ones in order of size, from the largest to the smallest.
Put the square-shaped yellow ones in order of size from the largest to the smallest?
Yeah.
Why should we do that?
Well, it's just the way the pattern starts, with a row of square yellow tiles, starting with the largest and working to the smallest.
Okay, well, that's what the instructions say, to put them in order by size, from the largest to the smallest. I guess that's what we better do.
Hey, wait a minute. Abracadabra. Square yellow tiles stand up in order of size.
Tom, if we want them in order of size, we have to put them in order of size. We, you and I, we.
It was just a thought.
Okay. I guess we'll have to decide.
This one's square
is
here. These are square.
but
Okay,
we'll
where do
have
they
to-
go now?
Okay, this is larger than
Okay, wait.
this one.
There, fits right in there.
Okay.
Oh, that wasn't so
Okay.
bad.
Well, now I think we have everything just as the instructions told us to do. We have all the tiles grouped by their different colors,
Right?
and then we've taken out all of the yellow ones that were square,
Right.
and then we've put them in order of size from the largest to the smallest. Surely we can start now.
I think we can. I think the great tile topping twosome is about ready to swing into
Okay,
action. But before we start, maybe we should practice the pattern first before we stick it down, just to
Good
make
idea.
sure we're right.
Good idea. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Better get
I guess putting things in order can be pretty important sometimes. And you know, people put things in order in different ways. It happens all around us every day. Take a look at this.
We've already looked at some examples of classification. What about a supermarket? Think of how classification is used there. The different types of products are put together in different parts of the supermarket. But when the products are classified, then they can also be put in serial order. They can be arranged according to size. And how about a hardware store? Just look at all the ways serial ordering is used in a hardware store. Can you think of other places where serial ordering is important?
And there are times when putting things in order and putting them into groups is important too. Can you imagine a shoe store if the owner didn't know about putting things in order or putting them into groups?
we've got it. I think the pattern's just like the instructions say. Take a look. Take a look.
Hey, that's right. It's all in order.
Oh, wow. That was a lot of work, but it was worth it. Look at it. It looks great.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Come on, all we have to do is pick it up now and stick it down on the table.
On the table, okay. Oh, no. Now we're going to have to start all over again.
Da-da-dum, da-da-dum, dum, dum. Da-da-dum, dum, da-dum, dum, dum, dum. Da-da-dum, da-da-da. I love fresh bread. And I really like making my own bread. This is going to be raisin bread, and all I have to do is add the raisins. Only we didn't have any raisins, so Linda went next door to see if...
Here you are, Tom. Here's a handful of raisins that I borrowed.
Is that all?
Yes.
That's not enough for a whole loaf of raisin bread.
Oh.
Well, here. See, the recipe says to add 250 grams of raisins.
You didn't tell me that. You just asked me to borrow a handful of raisins, and that's what the neighbors gave me.
Yeah, I meant a double handful. Only your hands are probably smaller than mine, so it still wouldn't have been right. I didn't make myself too clear. Guess that's not a very good way to measure things, by the handful.
I guess it is better to measure all the ingredients carefully.
Oh, and not just with bread. Careful measuring is important with all kinds of matter. That's one of the nice things about matter. We can measure it.
And if we measure it correctly, we can borrow the right amount because we can tell someone exactly how much we need.
Right. You know, there was a time when people didn't know much about measuring matter. They used to do just what I did. They measured everything against their hands and their arms. People would talk about something being as wide as a finger. They called that a finger width. And if something was as wide as 4 fingers, they called it a hand width. And things that were longer than that, they measured in arm lengths. And maybe you can already guess how that kind of measuring got them into all sorts of difficulties. But listen to what happened to one person in those long ago and faraway times.
Once upon a time, there was a man who was very, very proud. He thought he was the most important person in the world, and he thought he was the most intelligent person in the world as well. He wanted everybody else to think he was terribly important and terribly intelligent too, so he was always thinking up ways to make himself look important and intelligent. One day, the very proud man decided that a new suit of clothes would make him look even more important. But of course, he couldn't go out and buy the fabric for his new clothes himself. He was far too important to do a job like that. So he called to his neighbor's child and said, "I'd like you to run an errand for me. Here is some money. Go to the fabric seller and get me some fabric that is 6 arm lengths long and 10 hand breadths wide. When you have purchased the fabric, take it straight to my tailor and tell him to make it into a suit." So the neighbor's child ran off to buy the fabric. He had it measured very carefully so that it was exactly 6 arm lengths long and 10 hand breadths wide. And then the neighbor's child took the fabric to the tailor and asked him to make it into a suit. A few days later, the new suit arrived at the proud man's house. He couldn't wait to see how important he would look in his new clothes, so he decided to try on the suit right away. "What's this?" he shouted as he struggled to get into his new clothes. "Everything is far too small and far too tight. What was that silly child doing?" He sent for the neighbor's child, who said, "I did exactly what you told me. I ordered a piece of fabric that was exactly 6 arm lengths long." He held out his small arm, and when the proud man saw the size of the child's arm against his own, he said, "How stupid I have been. I was so busy thinking about how important I am that I didn't stop to remember that your hand and your arm are so much smaller than mine. It seems that what we have here is a suit for you." He gave the child the brand new suit of clothes. "And it also seems to me," he added, "that I have learned 2 things. First, I have learned that it is very foolish to be so proud. And second, I have learned that it's time somebody thought up a better way to measure things."
And somebody did. They decided to have what we now call standard measurements, so that we can all talk about a measurement and mean the same thing.
So if we have something solid like these raisins, we measure in grams to see if we have enough.
And if we have something liquid, like the milk we're using for our bread, we talk about how many liters or parts of a liter we'll need.
And if we're talking about how long something is, like this table, we measure in meters.
So for measuring, we use liters and meters and grams.
There's a story about liters and meters and grams. It's a story you can all join in. You see, there are blanks in the story where words have been left out, so you can join in and put the words in the blanks. The words you will use are liters and meters and grams. If you listen very carefully, you will know when to come in with your word.
There once was a fellow who needed some water. He needed the water for a drink for his daughter. He went to his neighbor. His neighbor said, "Neighbor, how much do you need?" "Oh," said the fellow, who wasn't quite sure, "a meter will do, or a little bit more." "A meter of water? You don't mean a meter. There's a much better measure. You're needing a volume is measured in liters, and so it's liters of water, not meters, you know. When measuring volume, the answer's much plainer if instead of a stick, you use a container." The next day, the fellow was needing some string. He needed the string to tie round a thing. He went to his neighbor. His neighbor said, "Neighbor, how much do you need?" "Oh," said the fellow, who was quite sure he knew, "I guess I'll get by with a small gram or 2. "A gram piece of string?" said the neighbor. "Oh, no, we don't measure length by the gram, don't you know? We've a measure for length that's really much neater. When measuring length, we do it by the..." If you're measuring length, a scale's not what you pick. You measure off string with a good measuring stick. Then one day the fellow was needing some rice. He needed the rice just because it was nice. He went to his neighbor. His neighbor said, "Neighbor, how much do you need?" "Oh, well," said the fellow, who was taking a guess, "a liter will do. Can you spare me that, yes?" "A liter of rice? Oh, that's not what you need. A liter of rice, good gracious indeed. When we're weighing out foodstuffs like rice and cooked hams, we're measuring mass, so we measure in..." If you measure that way, your measuring will fail. You don't need a container, but you do need a scale. So now the old fellow has figured it out. Let him tell you what measuring matters about.
When we're measuring volume, we measure in liters. When we're measuring length, we measure in meters. When we're measuring mass, we measure in grams. Just see what a very smart fellow I am.
And so the old man finally learned which type of measure we use for measuring volume, and which we use for length, and which we use for mass. And he also found out what instruments we use for measuring each of those things.
Right. He found that if we're measuring volume, we can use something like this. There are markings on the outside of this that show how much liquid is in the container.
If I add liquid and fill the container up to this mark, I have exactly 1 liter of liquid. Now I can measure almost any kind of liquid in a measuring container like this, and the marks will tell me whether I have a whole liter of liquid or just part of a liter. What was it the old man said? When measuring volume, the answer is much plainer if instead of a stick, we use a container.
And he also said that a container is not what we use for measuring mass. Remember, he said, if you measure that way, your measuring will fail. You don't need a container, you do need a scale. And this is how we use a scale. On this side, I put the solid. And on this side, I put the gram weights. And I keep putting on the gram weights until both sides are equally balanced. And then I count up the number of grams, and I know the mass of the solid object.
But a scale would not be a very good instrument for measuring volume, would it? I mean, it wouldn't work very well if I tried to pour liquid right onto the scale. Remember what we heard in the poem. When measuring volume, the answer is much plainer if instead of a stick, we use a container.
And this is the stick he was talking about. It's a measuring stick. And we use it to measure how long the table is, or we can measure how wide the table is, or even how high it is.
But we couldn't use a measuring stick to find out the mass of a solid object. And it wouldn't work if we poured liquid right onto the measuring stick to find out how much liquid we had. This would just be the wrong instrument to use.
And that's why we have an instrument for each type of measuring. We can measure matter, and we can measure it exactly if we know how to measure and which instrument to use.
Careful measuring is important in many ways in our lives. Let's take a look at some of the things that we measure.
We can measure with our hands. But the measurement may not always be the same, depending on the size of the hand and whether we measure with a closed or open fist. Sometimes we can measure one thing against another and get just what we want. This person is measuring a new kite string against the old one. But sometimes we need to use the right measuring instrument to find out if we have enough of what we need. Imagine what a house would look like if the carpenter did not measure correctly. When we mix things together, we have to measure the ingredients carefully so the mixture will be right. Here we see the ingredients for cement being carefully mixed. Sometimes measuring is used in special ways. Here we see fossils being measured so scientists can work out what prehistoric animals might have looked like. We measure liquids like milk too in containers so we can buy just the amount we need.
You know, I can't imagine why, but I'm starting to feel awfully hungry.
Maybe it has something to do with the wonderful smell of fresh bread.
Hey, that last loaf we put in should be about done by now. Ah. Oh. Yes.
Oh, that looks delicious, Tom. I wonder how long it is.
Well, I don't think there's much point in measuring it, Linda. It's not going to be this size for very long.
Why?
Well, I didn't make it so we could measure it. I made it so we could eat it.
Good idea. How about some butter?
Hey, yeah, some honey would probably taste good, too.
And how about a glass of milk?
Yeah, would you pour me some, please?
Sure.
Educational Broadcasting.
I'm bored. Tom, what we need are some changes around here.
What do you mean by changes?
I don't know. Changes so that things look different somehow.
Well, we could use a change shop.
A what?
Yeah, it'd be like a store, only inside there'd be all the different ways you could change matter. You and I could go inside and pick the change we like the best.
Hey, a change shop. That's a great idea.
I can just imagine it. The chain shop.
Good day, good day, good day. Ha, so you've come for a change, have you? Well, you've come to the right place. We specialize in making changes in matter. And believe me, changing matter can be fascinating. It can be done in such different ways. But why don't we start by showing you one of our very simplest changes in matter?
In this first change, we take a piece of matter, we change it, and then we change it back again to the way it was when we started. Watch, and I'll show you. I'll take a piece of paper, and I'll change it by folding it. Folding is a simple matter change. I'm going to fold this into a crown. What's the use of being the Queen of Hearts if you don't have a crown? There. The Queen with the crown. Looks different, doesn't it? But it's the same piece of matter. I can take the crown, unfold it, and have a piece of paper again.
A simple change, that one, but very useful. You can change all kinds of matter that way. Oh, and I love changes, I do. But while we're thinking about that simple change, why don't I show you another simple change? Right here. Here I have an ordinary, boring balloon. It looks a little bit like a hot dog, doesn't it? But I can change it like this. One twist and I have a head. A second twist and I have two legs. A third twist and here it is. I started out with a hot dog shape, but I end up with a dog shape. Now, although this does look a little bit like a dog, it's still the same piece of matter. And here's the amazing thing. I can change it back to what it was when I started, like this. And here we have it, an ordinary, boring balloon. Now, we've got a whole range of changes like this, simple changes that are quick, easy, and you can always change them back if you change your mind. Why don't you take a look right here, and we'll show you what we have.
How about a shoelace? When we tie it, it looks different. But it's still the same piece of matter. When we untie it, it looks the same as it was before.
Changes, that's certainly what we specialize in here. And now for a change of pace. Here's something a bit different, because these changes are changed in such a way that it would be very extra superbly difficult to ever change them back again.
Here's a choice. Who'd like a nice, thick slice of steak? You would? Or maybe you'd rather have some ground steak on a bun. Well, we can have this steak just as it is, or we can have it ground. Let's grind it, shall we? Oh, but wait. If we put this meat into the grinder and change it, we cannot change it back again. No, it would be very extra superbly difficult to change ground steak back into a slice of steak, wouldn't it? But if it's ground steak that you want, here we go.
Grinder, grinder, grinder of mine, change this meat by grinding it fine. Changes like this are hard to undo.
I'd remember that if I were you. What? You say you wanted a slice of steak? Oh, too late, I'm afraid. I warned you. Changes like these can't be changed back. With some changes, you have to be very, very sure you want them before you make them. There's lots of changes like that. Look at these.
Metal can be changed by being pressed or by being squashed. This car will be squashed flat by a big press. And then it can be picked up by a large magnet and dumped onto a pile with other waste products, which can be recycled and used again. Cloth can be changed too. Here, many layers of cloth are being laid out so that one pattern can be used to cut out many garments at one time.
Like these changes, we've still more to show you. I haven't shown you my favorite matter changes yet. I guess you know about states of matter. 3 of the states of matter are solids, liquids, and gases. Well, how would you like to see a change where something turns from one state of matter to another state? From a solid to a liquid to a gas. Watch and I'll show you. I have here an ice cube. It's solid, see? Solid, that is a state of matter. Now if I put this ice cube into some very hot water, it's going to change into another state of matter. The ice cube's going to melt, and it's going to become a liquid. What's more, if we add more heat to this liquid, it's going to change into yet another state of matter. Steam, that's a gas. Changing matter from a solid to a liquid to a gas can be very exciting. Did you know that when we change matter from one state to another, we can usually change it back again? If you watch very carefully, you will see that when the steam touches this cool lid, it's going to change into a liquid again. Do you see the water droplets on the lid? What's more, we could take the liquid, freeze it, and have a solid again, like the ice cube. It's all the same matter. It's all water, just in different states. Would you like to see another exciting change where matter changes from one state to another? Watch this.
Steel is usually hard, but it can be changed into a molten state by being heated. You can see it's liquid as they pour it out to test it. While it's hot, it can be molded into shape. And then it can be rolled out and made longer. Or it can be cut into small things like these parts of a roller bearing, which have hardened again because they're cold. All this can be done if steel is changed from one state to another by heat.
Exciting, exciting, exciting. I told you changing matter was exciting, didn't I? Ha! I love changes, I do. Hey, would you like to see some more? Well, then let me show you something special-tacular, huh? You like that word? Special-tacular. We save that word for our most exciting changes in matter. What would you say if I took some matter and changed it so much that it became something completely different, huh? Let me show you what I mean. Take a look right here. Here I've got all different kinds of matter. Flour, salt, sugar, eggs, milk. I'm going to put them together right here in this blender. In we go. Just a touch. Now, mix it together. Now, some of these things are solids, and some of them are liquids, but they're all going together and getting mixed up. Be careful if you try this at home. Make sure somebody older is with you, okay? Now, let's take a look. I don't have eggs anymore. I don't have milk anymore. I don't have sugar or salt anymore. No, they're all mixed together, and they're going right here into this pan. Which is then going over here into the oven. And here we are, a cake. Ha! Now that was a really exciting change in matter, wasn't it? I started out with all different kinds of matter, and I ended up with something completely different. And you all know it would be very, very, very extra superbly difficult to change this cake back into all those things I started with, wouldn't it? Well, I'm sure you'd like to see another change like this one. So why don't you take a look right here?
Concrete is a mixture of different kinds of matter: sand, cement, and water. It can be poured into a form before it's hard, and then it can be smoothed out and made flat. When the forms are removed, we have a good, strong sidewalk. Concrete can also be used for making other things, like buildings. It can be poured into forms to make tall pillars. When the concrete sets hard, the forms are removed and the pillars can support a building. Concrete is used for many different things in our world.
My goodness, if we had to choose changes in a shop like that, I'd never know where to begin. But we can make changes in matter, just as those two people did. You can make changes in matter too. You can make simple changes that you can change back again. You can make simple changes that are very, very difficult to change back again. You can even make some changes where you change matter from one state to another and then change it back again. Or you can make those changes where you change something so completely that it's very, very difficult to ever change it back again.
Changing matter can be interesting, but we do need to be careful about some of the changes we make. Here's a nice way to use fire to bring about a change: cooking meat so we can eat it. But how about this? We just need to think carefully before we make some changes. Right, Linda? Oh, get that thing off.
But I thought you liked changes, Tom.
I think I like your real nose a little better.
Aw.
Okay, where do you want this thing, Linda?
Over against the wall, Tom.
Okay, ready? Go. Linda, what are you doing?
I'm pushing.
I was pushing. I thought you meant that wall over there.
Oh.
Okay, try again. Go. Linda, now what are you doing?
I'm pulling.
I was pulling. Did you say you wanted that thing?
Hello? Who do you want? Alice. Alice who? Alice in Push-Pullville?
It all started when Alice went out walking in the fields one day, and she came to a place she had never seen before.
Now I wonder where I am.
Alice looked down and saw a sign that read,
Push me? Why should I want to do that?
Because it's easier than pulling it, silly.
Alice was startled by the strange voice, and she looked around to see the most extraordinary person.
How do you do? You're not very polite, are you? The least you could do is shake my hand when I offer it to you.
How can I shake your hand if you don't pull my string?
Why should I do that? Can't you move your own hand?
Well, of course not. I don't have very good muscles. In fact, I don't have very many muscles. Or you can move your arms and legs and things because you got a lot of muscles. Not very big ones, I suspect, but they're muscles just the same. Most folks around here don't have much in the way of muscles, so we can't make things move. Nothing moves by itself in Push-Pullville.
Push-Pullville? Is that where I am?
Well, of course. Now, can't you read the signs?
Push me, pull me, pull me, push me. Why? Why does everything here have a sign on it saying push me or pull me?
You don't know very much, do you? Everybody knows that matter cannot move on its own, but it can be made to move. And mostly it's made to move by being pushed or being pulled.
But I don't understand. If you don't have muscles and you can't move and you can't make other things move, how does anything ever happen here? And why all these signs?
Because every now and then somebody with muscles comes along, like you, and then everything gets a chance of being moved around for a while. Otherwise, we have to rely on natural forces like gravity and magnetism, and on things like air and water to move us. I bet you never even stopped to think about how useful muscles are, did you? Well, look at this, and think about muscles for a while.
People use their muscles all the time. It's your leg muscles that make it possible for you to push the pedals on a bicycle. It's muscle power you use whenever you push or pull something. And muscles are needed to push the oar through the water so a canoe will move.
You see how lucky you are? Now, why don't you use those muscles of yours to some good purpose and push me around a bit so I can see more of the world?
Good gracious, where did that come from? How did that happen?
You really don't know anything, do you? It was pulled down by gravity. You do know about gravity, I suppose.
Well, I know something about it. Gravity is a force that pulls everything towards the center of the earth. So if I let go of something, it will fall, like this apple did.
Well, harumph. You're almost right. Actually, it didn't fall. The object is pulled down by gravity. Come to think of it, I feel gravity pulling right now. I need to sit down.
Sit down? Where? I don't see anything to sit on.
Well, something will drop by directly.
Suddenly, Alice heard a loud thump, and there was a wagon in the grass.
Gravity again. Now be a good girl and pull the wagon over here so I can sit in it.
Alice didn't think a wagon would be a very comfortable place to sit. But everything was so unusual around here that she decided not to question what the string man said.
There, is that better?
Thanks. Now, let's take a rest for a while and see how gravity works in the world where you come from.
Because gravity pulls everything down, we can use it to help us in many ways. It's gravity that makes these race cars roll downhill, and makes us go down a slide, and makes things fall, like trees when we cut them down, or buildings when we demolish them. When the foundation of the building is weakened with an explosive, then the whole building is pulled down to the ground by gravity.
That's all very interesting, but if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to that world. Where are you going? You'll get hurt.
I'm okay. Don't stop me. Somebody or something must be pulling me. Goodbye.
Help me.
Now, what on earth can that be?
Oh, help me.
Alice went quickly in the direction of the voice, and soon she came upon a most extraordinary sight. It looked for all the world like a small heap of scrap metal, but there was a voice coming from behind a metal pan where there should have been a face.
Somebody help me. Help me. Please, somebody take this terrible pan off my face. Oh.
There, is that better?
Oh, thank you. I'm so uncomfortable. Would you mind pulling some more of these bits and pieces off me?
You must be made of magnets. All of these things are made of metal.
That's right. It seems that every time anyone loses anything with iron in it around here, my magnets pull at it, and in no time I'm buried.
Do things stick to you that easily?
Only things with iron in them. If you held your apron near me, it wouldn't stick. But if you take your hairpin and hold it close to me, you'd see my magnets pull at it right away. There, you see, your hairpin must have some iron in it. My magnets pull everything with iron in it.
That must be very awkward.
Oh, it's the price one has to pay for being so strong and attractive. I can make a lot of things move, you know. My magnets are almost as good as your muscles. Why, just take a look at all these ways that magnets can move things.
Magnets pull iron things. This electromagnet is helping to move scrap metal. And this magnet is holding the lid of a can, so we can open the can more easily. There are lots of ways we use magnets to hold things for us in our homes and in other ways in our daily lives.
I see what you mean. Magnets are very good for pulling things. Now, if you're quite comfortable again, I'd like to try to find my way home.
Oh, well, by all means. It's been nice knowing you. Drop by again sometime.
Alice waved goodbye and walked away. She had no idea where to go. But she didn't have much time to worry about it, because in the very next instant she was caught up in a strong wind. The wind pushed her around and around. Alice lost her footing and she fell to the ground. Suddenly the wind stopped, and Alice could see that she was sitting next to...
Oh, my ears and whiskers. I'll be late home again. That wind is really too much. It happens every week at this same time.
Well, then, why don't you stay home every week at this time, if you don't want the wind to blow you around?
Oh, but how would I get to where I want to go? I can't move myself, you know. I have to let the air push me. Oh, air is a marvelous mover. Over there, I'm sure you know that. Where you come from, they use air quite a lot, don't they, to make things move?
Oh, yes, I suppose so.
You suppose so? Great turnip tops, child. You should know better than that. Well, here, let's take a look at some of the ways they do use air in your world for moving things around.
Air can push things and help them move, so we use air for a number of things. Air pushes against the sails of a boat to make it move. Air pushes the arms of a windmill as it helps us grind grain or pump water. And even tools like this work with the help of air pressure. It's air pushing against a flag that makes it wave.
Now, just you remember that. Without air to move me,
where would I be? Oh, sometimes the wind is strong enough to push me all the way home. But today I didn't quite make it. I wonder, would you mind giving me a push on my way?
Well, of course not. Where do you want to go?
Well, into my rabbit hole, of course.
Alice got behind him and gave him a strong push. The white rabbit rolled over and over and over and disappeared.
He's home now, but I'm not. All these pushes and pulls aren't doing me very much good. Muscles and magnets and air.
Help me! Please, somebody, help me! Help me! Help me!
What's the matter? Who are you?
Oh, it was the water. It pushed against me altogether too hard. Oh.
The water pushed you? Oh, no, not another type of push.
Another type of push? What are you talking about? Water's the only type of push as far as I'm concerned. Oh, but sometimes it pushes altogether too hard. It was my own fault, really. I did go too close to that strong current. Oh, I should have known better. Oh, but I can't lie here talking to you all day. Well, you should know about the way water pushes things. Take a look at this if you don't. And if you'll just give me a fin, a hand, I'll get back in the water right now. Please?
Water is a useful natural force. It can push against a wheel and turn it to help us grind grain. As well as washing these apples, the water pushes them towards the packing place. Water can be used to help keep down dust and flying sparks that might start a fire when a building is being demolished. And water that is stored in lakes and dams can flow through turbines to produce electricity.
Well, that's all very well. So water can push things too. That doesn't help me find my way home. I just don't know where to go.
Alice looked all around. And then she found a door that she hadn't seen before. It was marked, "Push me."
Well, I might as well try it.
So Alice went up to the door, and then she went through it. And that was the end of Alice's adventures in Push-Pullville.
Have you ever heard of a place called Push-Pullville or Alice in Push-Pullville?
No.
That's weird.
Yeah, well, get the old muscles back to work. That's the only pushing force we've got here is our muscles, okay?
Okay, I'll push, you pull.
Oh, okay. Go. Hey!
Hey.
Six simple machines, and they help us with the work that we do. We'll look at six simple machines, and they're helpful to me and you. The first is the lever to lift and pry, and the second is the inclined plane. Since it's sloped like a hill, you can push things high. The third is the wedge with the tapering edge. The fourth has threads and can turn, it's a screw. And the fifth is the axle and wheel. Sixth is the pulley, it's perfect for you to use in connection with changing direction. We'll look at six simple machines, and they help us with the work that we do. We'll look at six simple machines, and we'll take a look at these too. When work is hard, try a lever or two to lift the weight and work for you. A hard push or pull is simpler, you'll find, if you get some help from a plane that's inclined. So the lever and the inclined plane are what we'll look at today. They're two of the six of the things that are simple machines.
Six simple machines.
That's what we need around here. Some simple machines to help us with our painting work.
Oh, come on, Tom. Painting is not one of those jobs we really need a machine for. We only need some muscles, so let's... Tom, I thought we were supposed to be painting.
Reading's more fun.
What are you reading? Another one of your favorite pirate stories?
Maybe you've heard tell of those two wicked pirates of old, Barney and Pete.
It seems that one day these two daring adventurers accidentally came across a treasure chest half buried in the sand. Barney thought it was a wonderful find, and he sat down in the sand to stare at the chest and dream about all the marvelous things that might be inside it. But Pete was too excited to dream. He wanted to take the treasure chest home right away and show it to his friends. "Let's see what's inside it right away," he said to Barney. "We can't see inside," Barney told him, "until we lift the chest out of the sand." "Well, let's lift it out right now," said Pete. Barney lay on the sand and watched as Pete took hold of the treasure chest and pulled at it with all his might. He pulled and he pulled and he pulled, but the treasure chest would not come out of the sand. So Pete tried pushing it. He pushed and he pushed and he pushed, but the treasure chest absolutely refused to move. "You'll never move it by yourself," Barney told him. "The force of your muscles isn't strong enough. You'll need a simple machine to help you." "A simple machine?" asked Pete. "What sort of a simple machine?" "Oh, a lever should do it," said Barney, and he turned over in the warm sand to go to sleep. "A lever," said Pete. "That's right, I need a lever." He ran along the beach until he found a strong piece of wood about 1 meter long. "Here we go," he said, coming back to the chest. "Now I have a lever, and we can lift the box out of the sand." He pushed one end of the lever deep into the sand under the box. "Now I'll push down on this end of the lever," he said, "and this treasure chest will soon be free." But it wasn't quite as easy as that. Pete pushed down on the end of the lever as hard as he could, and although the chest began to move a little bit, it certainly did not lift right out of the sand. Barney opened one eye and looked at his friend. "Get a longer lever," he said. "The longer the lever, the easier the lift, you know." "A longer lever?" said Pete. "Oh, yes, that's what I need. The longer the lever, the easier the lift," he chanted as he ran to find a longer lever. And the longer lever worked perfectly. He slid one end of it deep into the sand and under the chest, and then he pushed down hard on the other end, and the treasure chest was lifted free. "At last!" shouted Pete happily. "The treasure chest is ours. Now we can open it and see what's inside."
Well, I suppose you'd better stop here, Tom, so we can get back to our painting.
Yeah, but you have to admit that Barney and Pete had the right idea. I mean, they used simple machines to help them with their work.
But we don't need any machines with this work. All we need is our muscles.
Well, I don't know. I think we could use a good, strong lever around here.
Whatever for?
Oh, to save my poor old legs from going up this ladder. Here, I could sit on one end of the lever, and you could push down on the other end, and I'd be right up there at the top of the wall without having to do any work. Come on, let's try it.
Oh, that might work, Tom, if you weren't so heavy, but I can't lift you like this.
Oh, well, let's try a longer lever. The longer the lever, the easier the lift, remember? This should do it. Okay. Go ahead.
Ready?
See, I told you a simple machine could be helpful around here.
There's only one thing wrong, though, Tom. You're nowhere near the ceiling, which you're supposed to be painting. I don't think the lever is the answer to this problem.
Well, maybe not. But I still think the lever is a very useful, simple machine. Can you think of times when a lever is used to make work easier?
We use levers in many ways in our everyday lives. A casting rod is a lever. So is a canoe paddle. Hammers are levers too. And here's one kind of lever at work in 3 different situations.
Now that we've seen some levers doing all sorts of work, how about some people doing some work and getting on with this painting?
Don't you want to find out about what happened with Barney and Pete's treasure first?
Oh, all right. Let's see. We left them standing on the beach looking at the treasure chest that they had just lifted out of the sand with a lever. I remember Pete was very excited.
Now we can open it, said Pete, and see what's inside. Let's get it on board before we open it, said Barney. Oh, good idea, said Pete. Let's get it on board first. Pete looked at their pirate ship, which was tied up near some rocks, and he looked at the rope ladder dangling down from the side of the ship. He and Barney had scrambled down the rope ladder to get to the beach, but it wasn't going to be easy to climb up it again carrying a heavy treasure chest. If I were you, said Barney, who was already on the deck of the ship, I'd use another simple machine. You need an inclined plane to get that chest onto the ship. As he said this, Barney let down a board that just reached from the edge of the deck to the rocks. Excellent idea, said Pete, watching the board. An inclined plane. That's what I need. It's much easier to move something if you can push it up a slope. But it wasn't quite as easy as he thought. The chest was very heavy, and the inclined plane was very steep. Even though Pete pushed as hard as he could, and even though Barney helped by pulling as hard as he could, they could not get the treasure chest all the way up to the deck. The slope is too steep, said Barney. Let's try with a longer board. And he got a longer board and lowered it so that it reached from the deck past the rocks and onto the sand. And this time, the slope was not nearly so steep. The longer the slope, the easier the move, said Barney. The longer the slope, the easier the move. You're right, said Pete, as they pulled and pushed the treasure chest up the inclined plane of the gangplank and onto the deck of the ship. Now we've done it, said Pete happily. Now we can open the chest.
Can you hand me a can of paint, please, Tom?
That gives me an idea. We could use an inclined plane to help us. I mean, instead of lifting these heavy paint cans up to the table, we could roll them up, an inclined plane.
They're not that heavy, Tom.
Oh, true, but we might as well save ourselves as much work as possible.
That looks like much harder work than simply lifting the can to me.
Well, that's because the slope is too steep. Well, why don't we try this longer board? The longer the slope, the easier the move, right?
While you're busy rolling a can of paint up a slope, let's take a look and see how the inclined plane is really helpful in jobs that would really be too hard to do without some help.
Inclined planes can be used for fun on a playground. Inclined planes can be used to make work easier. They can be used to help load and unload heavy baggage and freight. And an inclined plane can be used to move things like boxes from one level to another. Inclined planes are useful in much of the work that we have to do. This shipping company uses an inclined plane to load iron ore into a ship for transport to a steel mill. And here's an inclined plane being used to load new cars onto a train for shipment to automobile sales companies in various cities.
Wait a minute, Tom. Before we get started, aren't you going to tell us what Barney and Pete had in the treasure chest?
I thought you wanted to get on with the work.
Work can wait. I want to hear the end of the story.
Oh, yes. Barney and Pete finally had the chest on the deck of their ship. Pete was so excited, he couldn't wait to find out what was inside. "Let's open it right away, Barney," he said. "Well, that won't be easy," said Barney. "The lock is rusted shut." "I'll use this iron bar as a lever to pry open the box," said Pete. Even Barney was excited now, as Pete pushed the lever between the chest and the lid to pry it open. And when at last it came open, what do you think was inside the box? Coconuts. Barney laughed aloud when he saw them. "That's not much of a treasure," he said. "And besides, they're far too old to eat." "Well, we could have some fun with them," suggested Pete as he handed the iron bar to Barney. "Here," he said, "you bat and I'll pitch." He picked up one of the ancient coconuts and threw it towards Barney. Barney swiped at it with his iron bat and the coconut flew far out to sea. "Now this is one of the best uses of all for a lever," said Barney. "A lever can be used to make things move and to speed them up. Next ball, or rather, next coconut, Pete." And the two pirates spent a marvelous morning with their coconut baseballs and their iron bat.
Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum.
What are you up to now, Tom?
Ooh. Boop, boop. All aboard.
Hey.
Barney and Pete had fun with levers. I don't see why we can't.
We'll look at six simple machines, and we'll take a look at these two. When work is hard, try a lever or two to lift the weight and work for you. A hard push or pull is simpler, you'll find, if you get some help from a plane that's inclined. So the lever and the inclined plane are what we'll look at today. They're two of the six of the things that are simple machines.
Simple machines.
Six simple machines, and they help us with the work that we do. We'll look at six simple machines, and they're helpful to me and you. The first is the lever to lift and pry, and the second is the inclined plane. Since it's sloped like a hill, you can push things high. The third is the wedge with the tapering edge. The fourth has threads and can turn, it's a screw. And the fifth is the axle and wheel. Sixth is the pulley, it's perfect for you to use in connection with changing direction. We'll look at six simple machines, and they help us with the work that we do. We'll look at six simple machines, and we'll take a look at these two. This is the wedge. It's thin at the start to push into something and force it apart. Machines that have threads and can turn. These are screws. They're found in all of these things that we use. So the wedge and the screw are what we'll look at today. They're 2 of the 6 of the things that are simple machines.
Simple machines.
That's what I'd like. A nice new house with lots of different rooms and all sorts of secret panels and things like that.
Well, why don't you build one?
Build a house? All by myself?
Why not? It's easy. All you need is a tree and some wedges.
What? Build a house with a tree and some wedges?
Sure. Let me show you how.
Tom once wanted a brand new house with brand new windows and doors, and brand new ceilings, and brand new walls, and brand new hardwood floors.
The architect said, "I've just the thing. Come, let me show it to you. It's the finest house you ever could find, and it's all completely new." The architect marched Tom into the woods and stopped at a very tall tree. "Now there's your house," she said to Tom, "the best you could ever see."
But, said Tom, who didn't understand, "I want a house made for living."
"Relax," said the architect. "Don't worry yourself. One wedge and we'll see the beginning."
What would be the first wedge used to build my house? Maybe an axe, like this. An axe is a wedge. A wedge is made up of 2 inclined planes. This side and this side. And a wedge can be forced into a solid object because the sides slope outward gently from a very sharp edge. And sharp edges like this are not things to play with. It's best never to touch anything sharp, like a knife or an axe, unless there's an adult around to help you. A wedge is a very powerful, simple machine. That's what makes the axe so useful. I'll bet this is the first wedge used in the great house-building project.
The woodsman took up a sturdy axe and struck the tree with the blade. "Now," said the architect, "you'll soon have a house, the best that's ever been made."
But, said Tom, who was very upset, "that isn't a house even yet."
"True," said the architect. "Let's try one more wedge, and then let's see what we get."
I wonder what the next wedge will be. My guess is it'll be this. This is what the tree cutter uses as he cuts into the tree. You see this very thin edge? He pushes that into the tree. We can pretend this is a tree. And he hammers the wedge into the tree so that it forces the tree further apart and makes sure that the tree falls in the direction that he wants it to. Let's see if this is the next wedge in the story.
In went the wedge of good strong steel into the tree's hard wood, so the tree would fall in a nice safe spot and not where the woodsman stood.
Did you see how that worked? It just goes to show what a useful, simple machine the wedge is. Without it, it might be very hard to make the tree fall the right way. Now let's see how that house of mine is coming along.
"There," said the architect, "there's your house. You can move in any day. Just think what a wonderful house this will be. Quite perfect in every way."
But, said Tom, who was rather upset, "that isn't a house, not yet."
"True," said the architect. "Try one more wedge, and then we'll see what we get."
Another wedge. Now what? Well, maybe the next wedge will look something like this. A saw is really a series of wedges. Each tooth is a little wedge on its own. And altogether, that makes the saw a very useful tool in house building.
So they took the tree to the big sawmill, where the saws had teeth that were wedges, and they sawed the tree into good-sized boards that were flat and had nice straight edges. "So now," said the architect, smiling wide, "there's a house that's a sight to behold. You'll live in that house with a good deal of pride until you've grown very old."
But, said Tom, on the edge of tears, "that's still not a house, as you know."
"Well, perhaps," said the architect, "a few more wedges and your house will be built just so."
Still more wedges. What'll it be this time? Well, maybe these will be the next wedges to go into my house.
point of a nail is a wedge too. You see how it's thicker at this place and it gets thinner toward the point? That's so it can be forced into wood easily. Now surely, with all those wedges, we'll have something that looks like a house pretty soon.
The builder took up the hammer and nails and nailed all the boards up tight. And there was the house, just as neat as could be, a very attractive sight.
Why, thank you, said Tom. How clever you are.
Not at all, she replied. It was fun. A tree and some wedges, that's all that you need. And look, your house is done.
I'm not sure I'd ever hire you to build my house. All you need to build a house is a tree and some wedges. Very funny.
I guess it might take a little bit more than that, but wedges are important for building, aren't they?
They're important in lots of other things, too. Let's look at some of their uses.
Wedges are used in a great many ways, probably more than we realize. Cutting blades are wedges, and the cutting blade on this cloth slicer shows how helpful a wedge can be. A needle is another type of wedge. A needle has a sharp point which forces its way through fabric, just as the pointed head of a nail goes into wood. And here's another type of wedge, a propeller, which is a wedge slicing its way through the air as it pulls the plane along the ground until it's moving fast enough to take off into the sky. The rotor blade on a helicopter is another type of wedge at work, pushing through the air to keep the helicopter airborne. Here's a tool that's really a wedge. It's making holes for new trees to be planted in the soil. The blades in these clippers are also wedges. And here's a much bigger type of clipper, using blades, or wedges, to cut through whole tree trunks. Can you think of some other wedges which are used for cutting?
You know, if I really did have a brand new house, I think I'd celebrate it by having a party.
Good idea. Would you invite me?
Sure. Do you have any smart ideas about a nice way to organize a party? Like your ideas on house building?
No, but I do know of one simple machine that would completely spoil your party if it weren't there.
Well, that's okay. I don't want to hear about it.
Okay.
On second thought, maybe you better tell me about it, so I'll be sure to have that simple machine around next time I do have a party.
Okay. Let's find out about Tom's disastrous party.
Tom planned a party in his brand new house. His 10 special friends were there. But the party was ruined by a simple machine which they just couldn't find anywhere. The first guest wanted a drink of pop. She had a glass already filled with ice. But the lid wouldn't turn because the screw thread was gone. She had to drink just ice, which wasn't nice. The second guest said that water would do. Try the faucet, said Tom, at the sink. But the faucet wouldn't turn. The screw thread was gone, and the poor guest just couldn't get a drink. The third guest wanted to turn on more light to see what kind of food was on his plate. But the screw at the end of the light bulb was gone, so he just had to guess at what he ate. The fourth guest wanted to have a snack, and she thought a jar of nuts would be enough. But she couldn't get them out. The screw lid had no screw, so she went on being hungry, which was rough. The fifth guest wanted to play the guitar to get a little dancing going on. But the instrument was flat, and she couldn't tune it up because the tuning screws, all of them were gone. The sixth guest wanted to sit on a bench. It collapsed at the moment that he sat. Every screw was missing that held the legs in place, and without the screws, the bench just fell down flat. The seventh guest was bitten by an insect on the arm, and she wanted to rub on some salve. The tube was full of cream, but she couldn't get it out because the screw inside the lid, it didn't have. The eighth guest had broken her toe that day. She needed crutches to get along the hall. But the crutches wouldn't work because the screw in one was gone, so she couldn't join the party fun at all. The ninth guest wanted to go out the door to get some fresh air to clear his head. But the handle wouldn't turn, the screw in it was gone, so he went out by the window ledge instead. The 10th guest wanted to play a game, and ping pong looked like lots of fun to him. But the game was no good. The net screw was gone. There was no chance at all that he could win. So the 10 special friends were not too pleased by the party Tom invited them to. All this fuss was caused by a simple machine that was missing from that party, the screw.
It's hard to imagine how one simple machine could spoil a whole party. But of course, that was just a story, and I don't suppose that all those screws would be missing at the same time. But there's no doubt that the screw is an important simple machine. A screw is really an inclined plane wrapped around a rod. See? And these ridges that go around the screw are called threads. And it's the threads of the screw that help make the job easier. Screws help us with a lot of work. Look at these things that make use of the screw.
One of the many ways we use the screw is in an auger like this, designed to dig holes in the ground for posts and planks. Here the screw is being used to dig holes to plant a row of young trees. This large machine tool is drilling a hole in a bar of metal. The drill bit is a screw. If you look closely, you can see the screw-shaped pieces being cut from the metal as the hole is drilled. We can also find the screw at work on the farm as the combine harvester goes to work harvesting a field of wheat. The combine separates the kernels of wheat from the rest of the plant and stores them in a bin on the side of the combine. When the bin is full, the wheat is augered out of the bin and into a truck for transport to a grain elevator.
Linda, do you want to come help me with these balloons?
Sure. Well, what are they for?
Oh. A party. The people in the story can have a party. I don't see why we can't.
We'll look at six simple machines, and we'll take a look at these two. This is the wedge. It's thin at the start to push into something and force it apart. Machines that have threads and can turn. These are screws. They're found in all of these things that we use. So the wedge and the screw are what we'll look at today. They're two of the six of the things that are simple machines.
Six simple machines.
Six simple machines, and they help us with the work that we do. We'll look at six simple machines, and they're helpful to me and you. The first is the lever to lift and pry, and the second is the inclined plane. Since it's sloped like a hill, you can push things high. The third is the wedge with the tapering edge. The fourth has threads and can turn, it's a screw. And the fifth is the axle and wheel. Sixth is the pulley, it's perfect for you to use in connection with changing direction. We'll look at six simple machines, and they help us with the work that we do. We'll look at six simple machines, and we'll take a look at these two. The wheel and the axle are most everywhere. For making work lighter, they're a most helpful pair. The pulley can help us in work that we do, to lift and lower and change direction too. So the wheel and the pulley are what we'll look at today. They're two of the six of the things that are simple machines.
Six simple machines.
Ah. Moving furniture certainly isn't my favorite type of entertainment.
Especially when we have to do it all with muscle power. Remember what that song said about the wheel and axle helping to make work easier?
I wish we'd thought of that. If we put some wheels under this chest, we could have moved it much more easily.
Okay, next time we move this stuff around, we'll arm ourselves with some nice round wheels.
And an axle. Don't forget the axle.
Of course.
The wheel by itself is not a simple machine. There has to be an axle.
You are so right.
Look at that.
It's a good thing this old hippo of yours isn't real. Can you imagine trying to move a real hippopotamus without wheels? You'd have been in real trouble back in the days before wheels if you had a real pet hippo to move around whenever you went somewhere. I can just imagine it.
There once was a charming little girl who had a pet hippopotamus. They lived every day in a very happy way with never a bit of bother or a fuss. Until one bright and sunny day, her tribe planned to move their camp away. She asked if Hippo could come too, 'cause in her heart she knew he would be saddened if she said he had to stay. Now Hippo gets so tired when it walks, and the camp was such a long way away, so the Hippo wouldn't go. He refused to move a toe and decided that that was where he'd stay. So the girl got behind him and pushed, and she hoped she could slide him along. But if you've ever tried to make a hippo slide, you'll know she was very, very wrong. So the girl got in front and she pulled, but the hippo stood firm as a stone. And the girl said, "Okay, there's simply no way I'll ever move this hippo on my own." Her father, who was kind and thoughtful, said, "Perhaps we could roll him along. Let's see if we can find some logs of the kind that are round and a stone that is extra specially strong." So they found the logs and set the beast upon them, and they pushed the stone to make it move ahead. Then they moved the roller forward, and they wished they had some more wood. "This will take us many days," the father said. So the little girl was forced to leave behind her hippo, 'cause they did not have a way to move a load like that. So the hippo simply sat as the little girl went sadly on her way.
That's a sad story. Poor old hippo. Just because they didn't know how to move him.
Well, the roller idea was all right for some things. But it wasn't nearly as good as the wheel and axle. A long time ago, before wheels were invented, people used to move things by putting them up on rollers. The only trouble was the rollers kept slipping out the back, so they had to keep picking them up and putting them around in the front again. The wheel and axle can be used in a way that, well, it doesn't slip out the back. So you can keep your object moving along with a lot less trouble.
If the little girl and her hippo had been alive today, the story would have been much different. It might have had a happier ending.
There once was a charming little girl who had a pet hippopotamus. They lived every day in a very happy way, with never a bit of bother or a fuss. Until one bright and sunny day, the girl had to take herself to school. And she took the hippo too, 'cause she never really knew that a hippo in a school's against the rule. Now a hippo gets so tired when it walks, and the school was such a long way away, but the hippo wouldn't go. He refused to move a toe, and decided that that was where he'd stay. So the girl got behind him and pushed, and she hoped she could slide him along. But if you've ever tried to make a hippo slide, well, you'll know she was very, very wrong. So the girl got in front and she pulled, but the hippo stood firm as a stone, and the girl said, "Okay, there's only one way I'll ever move this hippo on my own. With wheels and an axle that turns, I can move this remarkable load. Just get me some wheels, and I'll show him how it feels to go rolling right along the road." And right then and there appeared some wheels and some axles, a bus. As the bus rolled away, the girl said that's the way to be moving a heavy-potamus.
She didn't have to leave her hippo at home, thanks to the wheel and axle. But my goodness, there wouldn't have been any room for anyone else on that bus.
A truck might have been better for that job. We use the wheel and axle in so many different ways, and we hardly ever stop to think about all the things that we couldn't do without it.
Steering wheels, car wheels. Where are they going, these axles and wheels? Moon buggies, more wheels, wheels and axles turning everywhere. Plane wheels, landing wheels. Where are they going, these axles and wheels? Ferris wheels, fun wheels. Axles and wheels we can use just for fun. Wheels and axles, turning, turning. Simple machines helping with work. Wheels and axles, turning, turning. Wheels and axles, giving us fun.
And as well as those wheels and axles and lots of others, we also have wheels with teeth that work together. We call them gears. See how these wheels have little teeth around the outside? As a small gear turns, the teeth interlock with the teeth of the next gear and push that gear wheel around too. And if there's another gear on the other side, the same thing happens. The teeth interlock and all of the gears move together. Gears are very useful in everyday life.
Gears are wheels with teeth on the edges. The teeth of one gear push against the teeth of the other and make it turn. People have used gears for centuries for pumping water. For grinding grain, and for many other purposes. The gears in this old grain mill were made by hand from very hard wood. Nowadays, most gears are made by machine, and many are made from metal, so they'll last longer, even when they operate at very high speeds.
Wheels. Without them, we wouldn't get very far. Some of us, like the hippo, wouldn't even be able to get to school without wheels.
What I'd like to know is what happened when the little girl and the hippo arrived at school.
Well, that is a very different story, and one in which there's another simple machine.
When the school bus arrived at the school, they had a problem with the hippopotamus. He was stuck very tight, and though she tried with all her might, the girl could not get that hippo off the bus.
"It's a pulley that we need,"
said a voice from the folk who were standing around.
"Then we'll hoist the hippo out,
Through the top without a doubt, and then lower him back gently to the ground. So they simply took the roof right off the bus, and they set up the pulley all at once. As they raised her hippo high, the girl said, "Oh, why did I have to bring him with me? I'm a dunce." But as the hippo changed direction and came down, the girl said, happy as can be, "In a tight spot such as this, a pulley really is a great help to my hippo and to me." So the next day, when the girl went off to school, she left the hippo sleeping as she said, "I think he's had enough to do with pulleys and such stuff. I think I'll leave him home today instead."
Poor old Hippo. Where would he have been without that pulley?
Probably still on that bus. The pulley is a marvelous machine to use in situations like that. And here's an example of a fixed pulley. See? I pull down on this side, and the object on the other end of the line moves up. I pull down, it goes up. And if I want to let my object down, I let the line on this side go up. I pull in one direction, and the object moves in a different direction. Of course, if I had a very heavy object, I'd have to pull very hard. The pulley doesn't make my object any lighter to lift. It just makes it easier to move in the direction I want it to. Sometimes we can make things easier by using 2 or 3 pulleys together. We've probably all seen pulleys at work. Maybe not moving a hippopotamus, but in some of these situations, maybe.
A crane uses a pulley. The pulley at the top of the crane arm is used to raise and lower a load, which would otherwise be very difficult to lift. A microphone boom in a television studio uses pulleys too. The pulleys help to change the direction of the microphone and to position it closer to or farther away from the actors.
Hey, Tom, what are you doing? We still need to take this chest up to the storage room.
Oh, if the hippo in the story can sleep all day, I don't see why I can't. All right. Heave ho, hippo.
Goodbye.
We'll look at six simple machines, and we'll take a look at these 2. The wheel and the axle are most everywhere. For making work lighter, they're a most helpful pair. The pulley can help us in work that we do, to lift and lower and change direction too. So the wheel and the pulley are what we'll look at today. They're 2 of the 6 of